Well. What do we have here? Tony Popovic has named his 26-man squad to take on Venezuela and Colombia in the November FIFA Men's International window. Just the second last international window before he will have to name his squad for the FIFA World Cup in North America for 2026. 11 changes from the squad that took on the US and Canada about a month ago. Experimental Poletti doesn't even really begin to describe some of the names on this list. I feel like there is maybe one or two contradictions from the way that Popovic has sold his squad in the past, but the logic he's applying in terms of opening up the breadth and giving players opportunities does make a lot of sense in terms of building up to this World Cup and setting those yardsticks to know what happens with their club football over the next 3 months. Then you then have something to measure against. What are your first impressions of this squad?
My first impressions of this squad were, I'm surprised that with the amount of changes he made that Frank Bruniskevich didn't get a call up, because that's how wild some of these selections are. My second thought was, what?
Mm-hmm.
How? Why? Popovic obviously has been in the role for a while and he got us through qualification. So if you were to ever experiment, and this is one of the benefits of qualifying automatically for the World Cup, is you get the time to do it. By that same token, there's 4 games to go before he has to select his World Cup squad. Is now really the time to be experimenting with the likes of an Al Hassan Toure, who, yes, okay, he's coming off the back of a hat-trick, but has had some questionable form as well. Is it the likes of a James Overy coming in, Kai Truan, Patrick Beach? I actually like Patrick Beach, but, he's probably not going to see any game time at this window. At best, he'd probably be the third choice keeper for the World Cup anyway. So how important is your third goalkeeper? I mean, look, as someone who wants Jada Wyman to get a Matilda's cap, maybe I'm sounding a touch hypocritical
sympathetic
there.
Towards the third keeper, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm sounding a touch hypocritical there, but I mean, I don't get it, particularly if Popovic is going to be true to form with the way he's treated the likes of an Adrian Segicic, where it's come into camp, earn your stripes, and then your second call-up is when you'll actually see game time. That's a good chunk of the squad right there who, if Popovic sticks to his form, are not going to see game time in this window, in which case, why bother?
Look, the bother is get them into training, get them in a national team environment and see how they perform. And I completely take your argument at the fact that there's only 4 games to go before you have to name your squad. But where I can see a lot of sense in this is that 4 games is what? That's March. That's 5 months, right? So in terms of the actual time frame, a lot of what the World Cup squad is going to be picked on is form for their club football. Yeah, there are going to be a few exceptions to that. We know this, but I think so much can change between now and March when that, pretty much decision has to be made. Club form is going to go up and down. Club availability is going to go up and down. There are going to be injuries. There are going to be transfers probably that are going to impact the players that are really available for that World Cup. I really do like the idea of getting a baseline level for all these different players who, potentially on the long list, right? Every single player that has made a Socceroos squad, including this window, the last 3, they are on the long list and they've seen them in the national team environment and they can compare whatever their performance was in training for the Socceroos to what their situation was at their club. And then if their situation at their club improves over the next 4 or 5 months, then you have that yardstick to balance it towards. So yes, you want to be gaining consistency with your players and having a similar starting 11 and try and build up the way you want to play. But there is a balance there because what's going to happen to those 11 players that you put out the park over the next 5 months? So I think Tony Popovic and his staff are giving himself options. I will admit I didn't think he's be giving himself quite so many options as he has done in this squad. Some of the names really, really have come out of nowhere. I think the likes of Denny Juric, who a lot of Australian supporters will not be aware of at all, probably never heard his name. He has been doing all right at the moment. I think he was in Slovenia and then entered transfer to Poland, and he's scoring some goals this season. So look, he's an attacker who's scoring goals, which, never hurts, but definitely a name that people aren't going to be familiar with. And then some experiments in the likes of, a James Overy at right back. We thought Lewis Miller is looking great. Jacob Italiano comes in, does very well. He's obviously injured, which is why he's not in this squad. So it gives the likes of a James Overy, who's a 17-year-old who's currently playing at Manchester United in their academy, has been training with the first team as well under Ruben Amorim. So there's a little bit of a wrap there. Had a good under-20 World Cup without being fantastic in a side that didn't make it out of the groups. So that's an interesting selection. And then you have the likes of D'Agostino, who gets another run around. I don't know. I really like Patrick Beach. Like you said, I actually predicted that on the podcast yesterday, so I'm quite happy with myself. But Mo Toure as well. Obviously, he killed it, but then his brother, which is a great story, Al Hassan, he scored a hat-trick for Sydney FC on the weekend, but do we remember the performance he put in the week before where he squandered 2 or 3 easy chances?
I mean, he made Patrick Wood look good.
Yeah. It's like, I like the theory of experimentation, but I can't help but have a little underlying sense in this is a lot of experimentation.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And I think it's just too close to the World Cup to be doing it. And
so you don't buy the fact that 5 months is actually a long time compared to 4 games?
No, it's not that I don't buy it. I mean, look, on one hand, I say that. On the other hand, I know sometimes you have to look ahead to the future and there's not really a lot of time to do it. But on the other hand, and maybe my argument just simply comes down to if Popovic isn't going to play these players in these games, then I think, okay, you can sort of understand the idea of wanting to get that baseline in training, as you said. But at the end of the day, we're going to judge everyone for what they do on the pitch. And if these players aren't getting a chance to show what they're going to do on the pitch, then, and maybe I'm looking at it just way too black and white, but like I just
don't think it's our job to judge them, right?
No, and I think that's fair, but I'm also thinking, well, if I'll pick a random name out of this list, Denny Juric. Apologies, Denny, I'm not trying to single you out, but it's Denny Juric doesn't play in this window. He comes back in, plays 10 minutes in the next window in March, and is then selected for the World Cup squad. He's got 10 minutes of senior international experience heading into a World Cup that I think most people are expecting Australia to at least make the round of 16 in.
Round of 16?
Well, you got the round of 32, then you got the round of 16. Like, I think...
Wow.
I think most people would be expecting Australia to get past the first knockout stage, finally win a knockout game at a major... for the first time since 2006. I
think we're hoping for it, but yeah.
Yeah, but what is 10 minutes of international experience going to do across 2 windows? And yes, training is fine, but at the end of the day, we're going to judge this team for the performances that they put on the pitch, because that's what we can see. We don't get to see what's going on behind closed doors at training camp outside of the 15 minutes that's open to the media. We don't get to see anything else. We have to judge it on the 90 minutes on the pitch. And if these players aren't playing the 90 minutes on the pitch, and again, this is based on the presumption that Popovic is going to be true to form and, do what he's done with the likes of a Segacic, as I mentioned earlier. Maybe he's going to play some of these players in this window and everything I've just said is completely for naught, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, well, I just don't think our view matters a lot, right? You know what I mean? Like, in terms of Popovic's information, he definitely doesn't care what other people think.
No, and I think that's fair, but at the same time, public pressure is one of the reasons that cost Graham Arnold his job.
Yeah, I just don't think you can waste time thinking about this. And whatever direction Popovic and his staff think is correct, they have to follow that, right? Yeah. And whether that's successful at a World Cup will determine if he continues on for another cycle. But I think we've seen these 3 windows. There has been a consistent pattern of experimentation with different categories of players. I thought we were going to get a lot more A-League players in this window, and that hasn't really rung true. So we've got Craig Goodwin, who is the only capped Socceroo currently active in the A-Leagues that Popovic has picked for this squad. Aziz Behich probably would have been another one, but he's unfortunately injured, so he's still... I don't think he's featured since that window where he scored that goal against Japan at Optus Stadium to qualify us for the World Cup. So if he's going to qualify for the squad, he's going to come in very late in the piece. The other names are Paul Ocon-Engsler, Alassane Toure, as we talked about, Patrick Beach, who has been the standout Aussie keeper of the A-League so far, and Kai Truen as well, who's still uncapped, but he has been called up before. So it's funny, Aurelio Vidmar was actually asked in a press conference in the last couple of weeks about Kai Truen and the fact that he's been playing as a 6 for Melbourne City, apart from the Champions League Elite during the week where he played as a centre-back. And Vidmar, responded to a question about potentially that hurting his chances of a Socceroos call-up, because last time he was called up by the national team, he was selected as a defender. And he's listed there in this squad as well, but he has shown his ability as a midfielder, as a defensive 6. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that turns out. But that's the only A-League players, only 5 A-League players. So it is a little bit, but definitely apart from Goodwin, it's that young profile of definitely in the bolter category. It's not kind of too many, Anthony Caceres's, who a lot of people would still consider as a decent chance and valuable to the national team. Luke Bratton maybe a little bit further away, but none of those kind of names. Brandon Borrello is another good example, especially if we're bringing in, Alassane Toure or Edeni Juric. So there's not actually as many established A-League names as we were probably expecting, but still it fits the bill of experimentation. Who's actually going to, take the field? Who knows? It's probably, a very standard team, but it's just so fascinating. It's just so fascinating. Obviously, the other a couple of names that we need to mention who aren't in here, Alessandro Ciccati and Jordi Boss, who both went down with injuries in the last couple of weeks. So unfortunately, another part of the storyline here is that 2 of Australia's best players in the last few windows won't be a part of this team.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly disappointing, as we've already touched on with time running out. Maybe it gives a chance for some of these players to take a claim, right? Where I'm not necessarily saying they'll unseat the incumbents, but potentially these injuries open up a chance for players to get runs on the board that they might not have been able to get otherwise. But again, assuming Popovic plays some of these players, but I mean, we expect Ciccati to make the World Cup squad, right? My big thing with the defenders is what happens when Harry Souttar's fit? Does he just come back in? Does he have to be playing for his club before the March window? And maybe that's something we can look at another day, but because that could be a very big in for Australia, and then who drops out?
Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, you have the likes of Ciccati, Burgess, and Dejanek, who, on the podcast before we've kind of pegged as the best back 3 at the moment. You got a Jason Guerrier who is capable of stepping in, but that kind of right centre back is probably Ciccati's locked up. And then you're looking at, are you going to play Dejanek or Souttar in that central position with Cam Burgess on the left? That's one question. But Souttar, by the way, is coming back to fitness. He's likely to join the main Leicester group in the next couple of weeks. And then obviously you got a few months before March, so that there's plenty of time for him to build up fitness. But the other positive of this squad definitely is that we're welcoming back 2 players back off injury in Jackson Irvine and not Connor Metcalf, Riley McGree as well, who, is really trying to fight his way into a Borough team that's doing quite well in the championship at the moment. So 2 mainstays of the Socceroos, incredibly important players as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Riley McGree ends this cycle as one of the preferred players in that kind of inside winger position. And Jackson Irvine obviously has been a terrific leader of this group and a real, heart of that central midfield as well.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Irvine and McGree handle themselves, and whether, we all probably think that Jackson Irvine's going to be on the plane if he's fit, but is Riley McGree there? And I think this should provide a good opportunity for Popovic to see what Riley McGree can provide against some quality opposition, and hopefully, someone like Riley McGree can stamp his claim, because we know what he can do at his scintillating best, and he's probably one of the best midfielders that, Tony Popovic has available to him when he's fit, healthy, and firing. And I can't see any reason why McGree shouldn't be able to stamp his claim in the upcoming window against Colombia and Venezuela.
Very good. All right, we might leave it there for today's little squad reaction video. We've got more to come. Of course, you can expect what to expect from Venezuela and Colombia videos over the course of the next couple of weeks. The games, I believe Venezuela Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock, Australian Eastern Daylight, and then Colombia a couple of days later. What is it, on the Tuesday or the Wednesday at 12 o'clock as well. So decent viewing times for your Socceroos games, which is lovely, but enjoy your football, and we'll catch you next time.